I don't do anything complicated enough to really justify learning it, right? Like, as limited as tools like GIMP are and Kden Live and things like that, for what I'm doing, like, I'm not doing like high production work stuff where it really matters to me that much. But if you are someone who is, and you have your workflow built around that, like, even just moving tools can be rough.
You've just sent Micah down a tangent. I'm just warning you real quick.
I do want to send you towards DaVinci at some point.
Yeah, well, we're on full DaVinci with work. Jack and I actually are together in a video production company, and we are on a full Linux pipeline. And that's where I'm going to disagree with you, because like GIMP, sure, it doesn't have some of the preset type stuff as Photoshop, and of course it doesn't have the kind of like Jack's talking about Windows, the long history of people having tutorials for it and making things easy like that. But I use GIMP on a daily basis for professional work, and it does fantastic. Especially GIMP 3.0 has been incredible. Like the work that we're seeing there, and GIMP 3.2 is getting ready to come out stable, and that's got some really great improvements as well. It's getting better and better, but I've used GIMP for years, and I've had graphics on television and stuff like that were all made in GIMP, and it does a great job. The biggest thing is you've got, I think a big issue, because I've worked with alternatives to everything for years, and I think a big issue that a lot of new people come into with their mindset is they expect it to replace this thing. It's like, I don't know, maybe using an impact drill instead of a drill driver or something like that. I can't think of a great example here, but a lot of people need to stop thinking like, oh, this is going to be my new version of Photoshop for me. No, it's an entirely new tool with an entirely new way of working. And once you learn how that works, you can work around maybe some of the limitations, but also utilize some of the strengths. And you just kind of gotta, to quote Yoda, that's a second Star Wars reference, which is funny because I'm a Star Trek guy. But you must unlearn what you have learned of the old tools and really just kind of come in with an open mindset to learn the new tool for what it is.
Okay. I've not really heard that perspective before. So what is you mentioned you have a Linux pipeline for this work. What are you using in this tool? So you've obviously got GIMP. What else is in the pipeline?
So DaVinci Resolve, Blackmagic is another kind of unsung hero, or they are an unsung hero, I would say, of Linux adoption, because DaVinci Resolve has been incredible. But DaVinci Resolve is kind of the primary tool that we're using on a day-to-day basis. I've used it actually ever since it went, back in version 15, they added native Linux audio support. And that's when I switched to it from Lightworks. And so we've been using DaVinci Resolve there the whole time. It's fantastic. So GIMP, DaVinci Resolve, Jack prefers Krita over GIMP. And then we have OnlyOffice is an incredible Microsoft Word replacement. We host a NextCloud server for project management and chat, note keeping, a few other functions. Then we also have let me see, Shutter Encoder is a fantastic transcoding application that we use. I'm trying to think of any other pipeline items that we use. What's something I'm missing, Jack?
I mean, I don't know. Backend stuff can run on Unraid, which is technically a Linux server.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
I think
that's most of
Unraid
it,
is probably like the least controversial thing you could suggest. I feel like that's just like kind of a default for a lot of people anyway.
Unraid's awesome. I wish like there's. I mean, if you've messed with it, you probably heard of Space Invader 1. He's like the savior of everything Unraid related. But it's just such a great server operating system.
Mm-hmm. So, go on.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so what actually made you go with a Linux pipeline here? Because how long have you guys been doing that, or just doing this work in general?
Yeah, so I've been in the video production world for a long time. I'm coming up on 10 years of doing it professionally, and I've been playing with video ever since I was 13. So it's my big passion and all that kind of stuff. And So, I mean, long story short, it all started when I was, 3 years old. No, I'm joking. But long story short, I got into Linux because I was into video. And
Okay.
back in 2014, there were not very many free video editing options out there. HitFilm didn't even have a free version. And I was a teenager, I was broke and all this kind of stuff. And I heard about this program called OpenShot. And OpenShot did not have a Windows version yet. And I'm like, well, it only runs on this Linux thing. Well, what's that? And so I installed Linux next to Windows, and it was a whole new phase of discovery for me. And I was a huge Blender guy at the time, still am. Oh, that's another big pipeline tool that I use all the time.
Yeah.
Blender.
Yeah.
I use it so often I forget about it. But the thing that was kind of interesting was how many tools I was already using on Windows, and so I just started installing them on Linux, and then eventually I just stopped booting into Windows. And so from being a teenager and kind of getting into my first jobs and all that kind of stuff, I got a job in television, and I worked in television for 5 years. I became the marketing director of a TV station, and we were on a full Windows pipeline for all of that. And I would go home and I would use Linux for all my personal stuff and my other channel, Premiere Prep. And I just way preferred it. And I'd have my headaches on Linux, and then I'd go deal with my headaches on Windows. So they both have their problems. But I was way preferring the headaches on Linux. And switching to DaVinci Resolve made it a lot easier to say we could do this on Linux. And so basically, COVID happened. And everybody was sent home, and instead of taking my work computer home, I just used my at-home computer. And so for a long time, I was using Linux in television at that point. And so basically, after everything was said and done, I decided I wanted to start my own company, and that's where Caution Glass enters the picture. And when I was setting up my company as a Linux guy, I choose a full Linux pipeline. And so just from there, I've started hiring, friends and some non-friends and former coworkers and stuff like that. And now we've got a team of 5 people, and all of us are using Linux from top to bottom.
So when it comes to onboarding people with tools like DaVinci, I feel like people are going to be using in many cases on Windows anyway. Like, it's a fairly common tool. But when it comes to onboarding people with the other tools, like, how does that really go?
Jack loves it. No. So I think it's a mixed bag because, like I said, we're close friends. We've been friends for years, well before I hired him and everything. And I think there is maybe some picking and stuff that goes on. But in general, from my perspective, the hardest thing is a lot of people get tools that they love, and they remember a button being a certain place, and so they want to go use that button, and it's not there.
Right.
So there's difficulties in that. There's some learning new tools and things like that. But once you learn the workarounds and the system's kind of in place, it can just work. Now, Jack can speak more from his perspective because, Jack went from being full Windows guy to jumping onto Linux for creative work and stuff like that. So, honestly, speak freely. I'm not your boss right now. Just say it.
Okay. Well, I think no. I honestly, swapping from Windows to Linux for work-wise isn't that bad. The hardest thing was just like learning a new program like DaVinci, which honestly, learning something new versus unlearning something and starting, it's way easier to learn something from scratch. And because I was starting to really get into using Linux regularly and learning that whole system, it actually wasn't that bad. There's been a few issues and bugs that have sort of happened and occurred that I'd say that's been really the main gripe, and sort of that's resulted in some workarounds. But overall, it's not been that bad to really get used to it and get proficient on working on a Linux platform.
And if I can, Brody, I think one of the things you were wanting to talk about was kind of like what is Linux missing, and I feel like this is kind of a good segue to that.
Yes.
One of the bugs that I think Jack is probably referring to is about 3 months ago, we started setting up some new systems, and our distro of choice for 4 years now, basically, has been Kubuntu. It's
Okay.
been stable, reliable, it's great, easy to install NVIDIA drivers, everything.
Sure.
Well, our tool to get DaVinci Resolve working on there was Make Resolve Deb. And
yes.
Make Resolve Deb is a fantastic tool. It's still great. If you guys are running Kubuntu and you want to run DaVinci Resolve on there, still highly recommend it. But the problem came into, for some reason, on 24.04.1 or something, we don't know exactly when it happened. There is some sort of a package change. There's something that happened where now, if you are using DaVinci Resolve, your web browser basically freezes.
What?
And that meant that we could not preview any music that we're trying to find. It meant that we couldn't use we use stock libraries, and so we can't use those. We can't use YouTube. Like everything, like it seemed like it was just like DaVinci Resolve was hogging all of the GPU resources and not letting any other program use it. It is very wild. And the thing that's funny is I have a Thelio Mira, and that has had it's had DaVinci Resolve installed on Kubuntu 24.04 since 24.04 came out, and it worked then. There's been no issues. For some reason, the initial release of version 24.04 of Kubuntu works fine with DaVinci Resolve. But when we came back to install with 24.04.1, it just would not work. And we've tried rolling things back. We've tried all kinds of things. And it was enough of a headache that we just said, screw this. We're done with Kubuntu, and we're going to go full Rocky. And so Rocky is the official distro that Blackmagic supports and everything. So we've gone to a full Rocky Linux pipeline, and honestly, it's been working great. We've had a little bit of a networking issue, and it turns out it's a bug with KDE frameworks. And that's the thing, is it's like you turn around and fix one bug, another one kind of creeps up.
Yeah.
But it's a bug that's already been fixed. It's just not in the version of KDE frameworks that ships with Rocky 9. So we're kind of having to work around that. It's not a huge deal, but I would say that kind of one of the biggest things that Linux misses or is missing is unity. And I don't mean the desktop. It's unity between what everybody wants to do. And that's the beauty of Linux, but it's also the big downside of Linux, because things, look at Darktable. Darktable is a fantastic raw editor. Oh, there's another tool we use on a daily basis. Sorry.
You're going to keep remembering them throughout the episode. It's all good.
Yeah, I'll probably remember another 3 or 4 at least. But Darktable, the original creator of it built this great application. It's been open source for a long time, but then they had a big spout, and then the answer was basically fork it. Right. And that happens all the time with applications and also underlying technologies. And there has been so much improvement in Linux, and I feel like one of the best things to happen in Linux in the last several years was Flatpak and containerized applications in general, app image, snap. And the reason is because it brought a target. It gave a place for developers to go, this is how I need to make my application. And now you have Lightworks making a Flatpak for all of Linux. Anybody on any version of Linux basically can use Lightworks now without issues. It's fantastic. And that's a Hollywood grade editor, by the way. And you've got Fender. Fender just used PreSonus's Studio One to create Fender Studio, and they released it as a Flatpak. And so I think that what would be most beneficial to the Linux platform is for people to come together on some sort of a standard, even if it's not the one that everybody agrees on. We can always add to it. We can always add new features. And I'm not a software developer. I use the GUI as much as possible. I'm a very normal person using Linux as it comes. And I am looking at all of this, and it's like, if we could just decide on certain underlying technologies and features and functions of software development and standardize it, then that gives somebody a target that they can go for. And I listened to a great interview with the head of Proton, and they were talking about porting the Proton applications. I think it was like Proton VPN and
Oh, sorry, that
particular they were
Proton. Okay,
talking about.
yep.
Oh, sorry, that Proton. Yeah. But he was talking about porting, I think it was Proton VPN. And one of the things he was talking about is it's so difficult to target Linux because there is just so much fragmentation going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I could go on to a rant for probably 4 or 5 hours about this because it's something I'm very, very passionate about. But I hope that, you know, we can see some continued unity towards certain standards and everything like that. And we honestly are. I think in the 11 years that I've been using Linux, it's gotten way more unified. But I would love to continue to see that to happen because it would help bring applications to Linux, and applications bring people. Because if somebody's missing their app, that one app that they just got to have, that will keep them from switching to Linux entirely. So that's the big thing I think that Linux is missing.